In this tutorial, I'm going to take you through a start to finish portrait edit using only Phase 1's Capture One Pro 8. Hey there, Michael Voloshinovich here from Vibrant Shot. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/vibrantshot and also at vibrantshot.com. So in this tutorial, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a start to finish portrait retouch, but we're actually going to do it entirely inside of Capture One Pro 8. We're not going to use Photoshop here at all. So we're going to be doing some dodging and burning, some color grading, lots of things to get through. So let's go ahead and get started. And basically what we're after is we've got this sort of before image here and this after image, and sort of this is what we're going to try and do in this tutorial. So what I'm going to do first is just create a new variant of this original image. Really all this that I've done here is just crop this down to a 4:3 instead of a 2:3 because I just think that crop looks a little bit better. And so what we're going to do is just right click here and we're going to say clone variant, and that's basically just going to create another copy of this particular image here. So we've got two copies of it, and the reason I want that is that we can just kind of easily compare as we go through one to the other. So let's just get rid of this clear this compare variant here, and we're going to go into our new variant that we have. So the first thing we're going to do is just kind of go through some prerequisites here, essentially just kind of basic things that I want to tweak a little bit. So I think I want to probably cool this down slightly, maybe to around 5750 here. And let's just play with the tint a little bit, see if we need to go any particular way. I think the tint was actually okay at 0.5, so we're going to leave that there. Next thing we're going to do is just play with some highlight recovery here. So if we just kind of take this guy over here, that's going to start to take the whites and just kind of shift the histogram over a little bit. So let's just pull that in a little bit so we get a little bit more detail here, and we're going to also recover the highlights a little bit here. Something like that. And then shadow-wise, let's just bring in a little bit more detail maybe into the hair for now. And I think as far as the blacks go, I'm going to leave them for now. I don't want to make too many changes ahead of time because I think I'm going to do a lot of that after I've done some of my dodging and burning. So the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to go into lens corrections, and let's just see. I'm not going to really fix sharpness fall off because it's very shallow depth of field, so everything around the edges is soft anyway, so we don't really need to fix that. Light fall off is basically going to fix vignetting for us. So if we want to kind of recover some of the vignetting that happened in the lens originally, we can do that here. And so again, let's just take that to maybe 50%, and we'll play with that because we may want to introduce a little bit of vignette as we go through. And so I think the next thing I want to do is just go into our color editor. And you know what, actually let's skip the color editor because I think let's start with dodging and burning, and then we'll go back to the color editing at the end. What I find is that when you're doing any sort of local adjustments in Capture One, which is essentially what we're going to be doing with dodging and burning, the less other adjustments we have, the faster that's going to render. So I find it better just to leave a lot of those things until after we've done our dodging and burning. It's going to make things go a little bit faster. So for local adjustments, we're going to use the local adjustments tab up at the top here. Going into that tab, we now have a bunch of different options here. So they've added a few options in Capture One Pro 8 over what was available in 7 as far as local adjustment tools. And we've also got a couple of different local adjustment types. So actually, let's just remove this for a second here. If you click down and hold, you'll see that there's a new layer, which is just kind of a standard adjustment layer. And then we have clone layer and heal layer. So those are kind of layers that are specifically designed for, fixing particular areas. So you can clone a particular part of your image or use a healing brush on a particular type area of your image. So we're not going to be using those too much here. In fact, I'm not going to be doing much spot healing because her skin looks great. But obviously spot healing, cloning, not too difficult of a thing. Really, we're going to be focusing today on things like dodging and burning and color grading just to make the image really pop. So I'm just going to create a new normal layer here, and actually we're going to create a couple of different layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create one called dodge-local. And that's just going to be some local dodging and burning that I'm going to use to even out variations in the skin. And what we're going to do for that is we're just going to push our exposure up a fair bit. So let's just push it up 3/4 of a stop. And as you can see, it's not doing anything right now because nothing is masked in. I'm going to create another adjustment layer. That's going to be called Burn Local. And then create another one here. I'm going to call that Dodge Dash Global. And one more called Burn Dash Global. All right. So now let's just go ahead and take this one down here. So we're going to take this one down 3/4 of a stop as well. And we'll do the same thing with this one, except Dodge Global, I'm probably going to just go about half a stop because this is really just going to be for contouring, so we don't need anything overly intense here. And then let's just do the same for our burn, but that's going to be minus 0.5. All right, so now we're actually going to start masking. And before we do that, I'm going to go into my black and white tab. If you don't have that tab, just right click on the bar here and say add tool, or sorry, add tool tab, and make sure that black and white is enabled. If it's not, just select it and it will show up as an additional tab here. If the order of your tabs is different as well, don't be surprised because you can customize all of this stuff. I have another video on getting started with Capture One, so I'm going to show the link to that down here below. If you're new to Capture One, you may want to check that out first. This will kind of help you to understand what we're doing here a little bit better. So do check that out if you're brand new to Capture One. So I'm just going to go into here and I'm actually going to convert this to black and white because whenever I'm dodging and burning, I like to do that in black and white. I just find it helps me to visualize the luminance shifts a little bit better. So let's just go ahead and kind of pull these values here. This is just going to essentially embellish, all of the sort of inconsistencies in luminosity. And we can also increase contrast a little bit if we want that to be embellished a little bit more too. So now going back to my local adjustments, we're going to go into dodging first, and if we right click here, we can essentially get our brush settings. So we can change the size, hardness, opacity, and essentially hardness we want at 0, opacity probably at around 3%, and then size obviously will vary kind of as we go through. Now this does work with a Wacom tablet. In fact, I highly encourage you to use the Wacom tablet. If you don't already have one, it's a lot easier to do dodging and burning with a tablet than it would be with a mouse. So getting started, what we're going to do is we're going to just zoom in a bit here. We're going to start in fairly close up, and we're just going to work on kind of smoothing out some of the tonal transitions. We're not going to be super careful with this here because this is just going to be a quick portrait retouch essentially. And so we're keeping our opacity nice and low, keeping the brush nice and soft. If at any point you want to see what your mask looks like, we'll hit the M key and that will toggle between having the mask shown and not having it shown. So we're going to start off with the mask being hidden, and we're just going to start kind of dodging here in various areas just to kind of smooth out some of these transitions. Now if I hit the M key now, you'll see very faintly here where I've actually started painting. I think I'm actually going to take my opacity up slightly. So let's just go ahead and go to like maybe 5%. And now we're just going to carry on smoothing our transitions through a combination of dodging and burning. Now for the most part, what I'm doing is just following the same dodging and burning principles that I use inside of Photoshop. Not going to dive into the theory behind it too much. For that, you can check out my full-length fashion and beauty photography and retouching course through RGG EDU that's shown down here below. So definitely check that out if you want more details on the subject of dodging and burning, which we spend a very long time on in there. But again, just apply the same theories, same concepts here, just using slightly different tools to what you're accustomed to inside of Photoshop. All right, so let's just see where we're at. So we're going to just zoom out. Now, one thing that took me a while to find actually is how you view the changes you made in an easy manner and inside of Capture One essentially. So how do we toggle all of these layers on and off quickly? The answer to that is if you hold down your Alt or Option key and you click on this here and hold it, it will revert all of those results, and then when you let go, it will bring them back in. So clicking down here, we can see this is before, this is after. So you can see we've kind of smoothed out some of these transitions and made them flow together a little bit. So holding down Alt or Option, click on the undo key, or essentially the reset key, and release again will take you back. So that's how you preview that. So I'm just going to do a little bit more of this dodging and burning here. I think there's a couple areas that I still want to smooth out slightly, but we're definitely getting there. And if you find the opacity is a bit too high for you, just kind of vary it based on your needs. Depending on how much you adjust this exposure here, the effect will build more slowly or more quickly. All right, so that's all I really want to do as far as, sort of corrective dodging and burning. So again, let's just toggle this on and off. This is where we started. This is where we're at. So as you can see, we're just kind of smoothing out some transitions and some luminosity areas that that weren't quite what we want them to be. And actually, you know what? There's one more spot here that I'm noticing now that I just want to deal with. There we are. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to just essentially dodging and burning globally, or contouring. So you can kind of call them whatever you like, but what we're basically going to do is just try and build a little bit of depth and dimension in the face now. So I'm going to probably work fairly zoomed out at this point because we are doing more global things. We're going to be using a large brush size for this for the most part. So we'll start with dodging, and we're just going to dodge some of these kind of key areas that are already, brighter. So wherever we have highlights, we're going to probably just play that up a little bit in common areas that we would normally contour. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of these here, brighten up those areas. And I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit here because I do want to work in a little more detail around the nose and the lips. And I'm just going to hit the M key, make sure that we are in fact getting in there, and we are. And I'm going to bump up my opacity to around 8%. And let's start contouring. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's just go ahead and toggle all of this stuff on and off. So again, holding down Alt or Option, holding down, there's our before and there's our after. So basically we've healed a couple things here and done some contouring. So next thing we're gonna do is just, let's go ahead and take off our black and white here. So turning that off, we're going to go back to our original image and back into local adjustments. I'm just going to work on the eyes quickly here. So let's just go ahead and zoom in really tight. And then we're going to hit the M key so I can actually see adjustments. And I'm just going to create a new adjustment here called eyes. And let's go ahead and increase our opacity here. Hardness, we're going to increase a little bit as well. And shrink the size down. So basically what I want to do is just kind of mask in the eye. And let's do the same thing with the other one. All right, and again, hitting the M key, that's going to take that off. And we're going to go ahead and sharpen this. So in the sharpening, we're just going to crank the sharpening up. That's mostly going to work on this eye because that's the one that's in focus here. And let's go ahead and play around with brightness. So we'll just kind of increase this a little bit here just to brighten it. And we can even work with the white balance a little bit here. So if I cool this down, I can introduce a little bit more blue maybe into the eyes. And I might just saturate them a little bit more as well. So I think that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and zoom out and just toggle that on and off. I think that's enough of an improvement there. Okay, so now we're going to actually start tweaking the colors a little bit here. So first thing I want to do is just go into the color editor, which is over here. It's usually in this color adjustments tab. And we're going to go into skin tone. So from here, we're going to just click on this little icon here and sample the skin tone. So that's going to just make that selection for us. And basically this is, I'm not going to go into detail on this tool. There are some videos on this, and I'll have more details on this in future videos as well. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to target a particular saturation and color range and basically allow us to make a few tweaks to the skin color. And so it's automatically selected that, and we can, change the feather by adjusting the smoothness here. Or just going to take the defaults. So I'm going to just go with the defaults here, nothing fancy. And first thing I want to do is maybe just see if we want to shift the hue one way or another. So if we go this way, as you can see, we're making the hue more towards the red side of things. And if we go this way, it's going to be more greenish. So I think I want to actually pull it towards the green side a little bit. And then uniformity, basically what that's doing is it is trying to even out the skin tones so that they're even, and we're going to actually use that here. So let's just take it to 0.5 and let's just see how we're doing with this. So again, holding down Alt or Option, we're going to click on that, and that's going to disable it, and then if we let go, it's going to enable it. So as you can see, it is smoothing out some of the areas here, just making things a little bit more even, and slightly tweaking the tone. So in this case, very subtle adjustment because her skin tone was actually really even in the original image already. So another thing I'm going to do is just turn down saturation a little bit on this. And let's just see if we want to do anything with lightness here as well. So maybe just darken down the skin slightly too. All right, so the next thing I want to do, just using this color balance, essentially this allows us to create a color cast. So let's just go ahead and just kind of circle this around and see if we want to go any particular way with this. So as you can see here, this is kind of a more magenta color cast. In here, we're sort of more blue, cyan. So really depending on kind of the look we want. Like something like this wasn't necessarily bad if we want this sort of cooler look. But in this case, I'm probably going to just pull it somewhere into this area here. And then what we can do is we can go in advanced as well. And in the color editor, we're just going to sample this background color. Now that's going to bleed into the skin tone probably a little bit as well. So it's not going to allow us to isolate it perfectly just because it is somewhat similar to the actual skin tone, but at least we'll be able to make some adjustments to that color overall as well. So let's just go ahead and see what we can do as far as this background goes. So if we play with that, it's going to desaturate. And as you can see, it is picking up some of the skin tone with it, so we're going to just try and balance those two out. Something like that, I think, kind of suits the skin and the background pretty well. So that's the only difference really between the advanced tab and the skin tone tab is you don't get this uniformity option in the advanced tab. And if you want to create additional adjustments, you just click down here and you can create additional kind of color selections within this color editor. Next thing I want to do is just kind of play with our exposure a little bit. So I'm going to just tweak these highlight and shadow sliders a bit and see if it actually looks the way I want it to. So somewhere in and around there I think is still fine. I might just increase the contrast a little bit here. Maybe take exposure down just a little bit to make it more moody. Take overall saturation down. And then let's go ahead and go into the actual curve here and see if we want to tweak any of these individual colors. So let's play around with the shadows. Let's see if we want to actually introduce any cyan into our shadow. So we can just kind of pull this in, and as you can see, this is just like using the curve in Photoshop. Essentially, it's just we're going to tweak the individual colors here. So we're tweaking the shadow end here and adding a bit of cyan into the shadows, or we can play with the highlight end here. So that's all I really want to do, is just to kind of introduce a little bit more cyan into there. And let's go into the greens and see if a little bit of magenta helps, which I think it does. Something like that. On the highlight end, probably don't really want to introduce too much of green color, but maybe a little bit. And then with blues, we can make this a little bit more yellow, or just kind of leave it as is. I think I'm just going to add a tiny bit here, maybe change this to 253. All right, and then blue in the shadows, I don't think so. Maybe we'll just leave that as is. Yeah, I think I kind of like it as it is originally. Now, one thing that I will actually do for this, because she has these really nice freckles, I'll actually emphasize that. And you can do that pretty well using the clarity slider. And I know it's generally you don't use a clarity slider on portraits, but in Capture One Pro 8, they do have a nice natural method here. So you can kind of pick the method that it's going to use to do the clarity. And the natural one actually surprisingly works well for portraits. I mean, if we push this here, that's a little bit too much, obviously, but just kind of a little bit of it is going to add a tiny bit of mid-tone contrast and just kind of make those freckles pop. So if we just toggle on and off there, you can see it's just a really subtle adjustment. In fact, we could probably push that even more. So it's just kind of giving us a little bit more pop, a little bit more contrast. But as you can see, it's not really, making the skin look crunchy or bad. Everything still looks really nice. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. All we're going to do here now is I'm just going to go back to my RGB curve, and I'm actually going to just add a little bit more contrast into this. So let's just drop this down, create a slight S curve here. All right, and then I'm going to go and add a bit of vignetting as well. So let's just kind of darken up part of that background area. And now I still think there's a little bit too much saturation in this for our portrait. So let's just go ahead and take our saturation down a tiny bit more. Somewhere in and around there, I think will be good. And then if we want to darken our black point, you can do that just by taking this slider down here and pulling it in. But I don't think I want to darken that too much more, because I'm just going to lose too much detail in the hair there. So I think that is a good amount of contrast that we have there. So that about wraps up everything we need to do. And just to kind of show you the individual steps we went through and sort of how the effects built up, let's go ahead and start with our local adjustments here. So let's just toggle this on and off. Again, holding down Option or Alt, we're just going to click this back. That's before, that's after, one more time, that's the before, and that's the after. Going into our exposure section here, if we just toggle our curve on and off, that's just doing a little bit of color grading and adding contrast. Then we have our clarity, we have some vignetting, and then we have our color adjustments. So toggling those on and off, that's before our color editor, and that is after the color editor. So whole thing, if we undo everything, there's the before and there's the after. So I do hope you found that useful. Be sure to check out my full fashion and beauty retouching tutorial in the link below. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get future updates just like this one. And finally, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/vibrantshot. Bye for now.